Before I start with talking about Game of Thrones, I want to thank as well all the sponsors that made it possible that such an event could take place. So please take your time and crawl across the internet, go at the booths out there and praise the sponsors that really help that these kind of events take place and are available, and we could share our knowledge in our Agile community. So, Game of Thrones. Who of you has ever read this book, Game of Thrones? Only a very few. You see on my book that is really worn out because I'm reading books like hell. I'm reading books, and staples of books are beside my bed. Not only books about agility and Scrum and Lean and Kanban, that stuff, even novels, tales about, and this is a fantastic tale. And while I was reading this tale, many of these things in this story about knights and kingdoms reminded me on the Agile community. So the point in this book is that there are 7 kingdoms, and these 7 kingdoms live in a great era that is called the realm. And actually, everybody wants to live in a nice and prosper country where everything is fine and the villages are prosper and the fields are green and everything. But unluckily, there's an iron throne. And this great house in this realm that sits on the iron throne rules all of the realm and rules all of the 7 kingdoms. Point is that these great houses now fight wars against each other. So every one of these great houses has its own host, and they're fighting against each other, killing against, with politics, with anything. There are good people, there are bad people, there are nice leaders, there are bad leaders. And the point is there is a foe, an enemy out there in the north. And this is the real foe. They command and control dead, living things that really want to take over the realm. And that's the real foe out there. And while the others are fighting their little wars in these 7 kingdoms, the foe is getting stronger and stronger with this command and control idea. And this reminds me very often when I go over the internet and read those Agile blogs, what is in the Agile community. And luckily, there are a lot of people out there, small coaches and consultants and inventors of an obvious or intentionally or not so new methodology, a tiny thing that they encountered as the new real thing. So they're fighting these little wars. And if you don't believe me, just look at some of these statements. And I could collect you more and more of these statements. So SAFe is bashing against dead, and Scrum guys are fighting Kanban guys. And even the last one where anybody says Agile wars are destructive, this blog is fighting against Scrum. So he says Agile wars are destructive and fighting against Scrum. And I think this is something we really should think about. And as Scott said in the talk before, there are so many options and things out there, and we should use them all. All of them should help us, and that's what I want to talk about. Because the main thing that we should really do is to fight against the common foe, and these command and control structures in our organizations. And there are many, many more options than just Scrum or Kanban or even DAD, and DAD is pretty a real good thing, I would say, that help us to really get better. As we saw from Scott's slides, we want to get better, and that's the point. So, wars about methodology are dead ends. And please, if you go over these blogs and you see such a thing, think about what is really behind. Often I see there's a small consultancy or a coach trying to sell himself. And if you see this, check carefully. Check carefully the resources that behind there. Typically, these type of guys want to sell themselves. So they want to garden their local garden and say, I'm the one who invented this very, very good methodology, and now I save the world with my methodology, fighting one of those small fights against the other kingdom just beside. So they sell you 12 kilograms of agility with free shipping or whatever. So don't believe this. And if you see those fights on the internet, react in a way that I would like to present you, and that's presenting my mindset to go through an agile community to help us all as we sit here and try to share knowledge. So what is it all about? It's all about that we don't want to have a dead patient. So if I look by now at agility, it's getting more and more interesting, but the empire strikes back, as I saw. The foe, the outside there waiting in the north, is coming it's getting stronger. And as Scott said, when agility creeps out of the IT department, we have to think out of the box. We have to optimize the whole. We have to understand the whole organization. We have to understand all these politics, these managements, and we have to act in a good way. And this is just more than just agility. There are a lot of more things we have to take and encounter to really optimize the whole thing. And otherwise, we would end up with a patient like here, a nice cartoon from Glassbergen that might be we live only 24 days, another 24 days, hours in our agile world, and would be a sad thing. So, what could we do? I think we should very, very urgently really care about core values and principles in agility. And everybody of us should really read about that stuff, get informed about what are the real core values and principles. And there are many of them out there. I just want to point out my favorite collections here. What are the cores behind all of it? Yeah? And, well, one point I found was take an economic view. As Scott said, it doesn't matter that we invent agility anywhere, that the organizations get agile. The point is that we want to create value and bring it out to our customers. So this is a lean principle. Create more customer value with less resources, so avoid waste. I would say this is a core principle. To think about for everything that we do, how could we avoid waste? Another thing is don't make your customer wait. I saw a company failing on introducing agility. That was a really, really absolutely interesting thing, because the Scrum teams, they were very dogmatic with their coach. They said, we do a planning and estimation once every 3 weeks. They had to do week sprints. And the sales department said, well, we want to know a price for anything the customer is asking for. And the IT said, we don't say a price before 3 weeks, because then we do a replanning and estimations, and our customer has to wait 3 weeks until we tell him what the price will be. So the sales manager of the sales department said, no way, agility, throw it out of the house, and it's gone. And it was gone. So this is a way acting dogmatic and acting bad, and we will fall back in ancient traditional behavior. So this shouldn't be the case. So don't make your customer wait. The fast is the new big. This is a slang coming from different things where product cycles are getting shorter and shorter. So if we are fast, we are winning. We are on the winning side. So we have to do anything to support our clients, to support our customers to be fast. This is a core principle. Agility helps in there, but many other aspects help as well to become fast. And agility, what's this all about? I found this statement from the health domain. It's not coming out of the software development domain, because if you read on Wikipedia what is agility, you get a sentence about half a page long, and there are methods in there and whatever is in there, and you don't have a clue what ability really is. I found this sentence in the health domain, so really from the sports domain, and I think this is the best way to say what ability is. We have to move and to change, and in the health domain they say the body quickly, that's the only change that I made. I say the organization quickly and effectively while being in control. So be flexible, having the ability to move and to change ourselves as organization, as part of the organization, as person. That is a core value of being agile, while being in control. That's a point where Scott talked about governance, and that's control, being in control. So, and then very important is optimize the whole. it's not sufficient that we really optimize one department. So one core value is focus. Focusing is something agility supports. But when I go in many clients and customers, and I crawl to many clients in Switzerland and internationally, then I saw they just have too many projects. That's one thing. Focus. Skip out all these projects that are everlasting without any success. If you even would do this, thinking in a lean way, you would improve yourself. So focus and local optimization is a bad thing. So local optimization, try to avoid this. Local optimization is, for example, if you only think about Agile in the IT department, as Scott says. Go to marketing, to sales, to operations, to support, to any department in your organization and talk about agility. Agility in a marketing department will be different than agility in an IT development part, or agility in operations might be something absolutely very different. So optimizing the whole is the one point, because otherwise you have those gardens, those small kingdoms that fight against each other. And this continuous adaptation and improvement as well. And Scott was talking about experiments. I like this word of experiment as well. Experiment what works. And for management, experiments sound so dangerous. But tell them this story. For example, if you think about a professional sportsman like Roger Federer playing tennis, then he's experimenting all the time. So how do I hold my racket? Do I hold in this angle or this angle? These are all small experiments. And he will beat everybody in this room. Yeah? Still he's experimenting, how do I hold my racket in a better way? And this is the way of experimenting we should do. So changing tiny things, adapting tiny things, these are small experiments while we're still professionals and acting better than other organizations. We're still experimenting and improving because we learn from the results of these small experiments. These experiments could be done on either side, on the people side, on the tool side, on the process side, in any department, and we have continuously experiment with these small steps. I think a big discussion as well is, and a big core value is this discussion about standardization versus diversity. This cry of management, the one fits all, comes from this standardization aspect. So it's good to standardize, but it's not good to standardize everything. So you really have to know what do you standardize and where do you want to have diversity. Because diversity means invention, means new ideas, means the mindset to experiment, to be ahead of the others. That's diversity. And standardization addresses efficiency and productivity. So the right balance between diversity and standardization is the success. So think about what of the tool chain, so-called tool chain, I've never seen one really working totally, what of the tool chain could you really standardize? What are the methods and technologies that you use in a common way? Where do you need a different way in what department? I think this is a core value. You have to keep in mind that you find the right balance between standardization and variation. I think that is a very, very important point. These are core values. So how do you deal with these core values? I would say there is so many things out there. So my attitude to go all through these kingdoms, these rich kingdoms that have green fields and prosper villages, I have the attitude of the hunter and farmer. Like those masters that are meant in this book, Game of Thrones, collecting ideas and methodologies. I have my imaginary bag of methodologies, techniques, and ideas always with me. And I'm collecting like a hunter and farmer. So I'm reading books, I'm reading blogs, I'm experimenting in my own life, I'm talking with other guys, and I get a new methodology or a new way how to apply a methodology, I put it in my sack. And if I go to a customer and I see what he's doing, that I open my bag and look into, I would say, well, picking out this might be a good idea. And this could be an old idea as well, a 20 years old idea. So, but it's still a good idea in this scenario and in this context. So, and then I pick out a set of ideas that work together in a combination for this company. Then I try to adopt these ideas. So acting like a hunter and a farmer for all those methodologies and ideas that are out there, that's a good idea. Another good idea is copy and paste. I always say I'm a copy and paste guy. Yeah? If we wouldn't copy and paste and we would reinvent the wheel every time with every single person, we still would sit on the trees throwing coconuts on each other. Yeah? So we're living from the knowledge and from what all the people achieved before us. And it's written in books, it's out there on the internet. So this is a picture of a library. If you read all of those books that ever were out there in software engineering since the 70s of the last decade, yeah, well, that would be perfect, or at least the leading books in there. There are so many good ideas that I see coming in a new way. Just a few months ago, a guy came up to me and said, well, I have a new idea about a card, how to use a card. So why don't we put in our data modeling the names of items, of business items on a card, and we discuss how this card could be used in collaboration with other business objects in our organization. And I said, well, sounds to me like you're talking about CRC cards methodology that has been invented in the 80s, last century. Why don't you read about this book? And this is a good idea, a great idea, might work perfectly in data modeling. It's already invented, and you could take your idea and make a better idea of this by reading these old books. But please read them. So this copy, paste, and adapt thing is a good thing. And there are so many good ideas out there. So optimizing the whole is more than just reading a Scrum book. So this Ken Schwaber Scrum book or the Anderson's Kanban book. There are other ideas. For example, queuing theory. So Reinertsen, the Lean Product Management Flow book, for example, is a very, very good book. Queuing theory, cadence and synchronization. Even if you're reading book outs of research covering these topics are very interesting, because suddenly you understand why a backlog might be a good idea in this context, because you're limiting the items in a queue. And you understand how variance of the size of items in a queue is getting impact in what you're doing in the development team. So understanding queuing theory and cadence and synchronization is a very important point. Or for example, why is decentralized control a good thing? So why is it essential that I decentralize control so that feedback and actions and reactions could be done where it's really important? Do you know where the basis is behind these ideas? Just instead of accepting that Scrum teams are a self-organized team, you don't understand why decentralized control is one point. As well, complex system theory. Think about Dave Snowden. Dave Snowden with the Cinefin ideas and all the theory behind complex systems. So the inability to take a control experiment, if I change this, the outcome will be that. We are living in a world that's not like this. So how do we deal with management with a complex system, like our organizations are complex systems, so that we could say, how could we play with this? How could we experiment and even observe and discover what experiments are good for our organizations and what are not good for our experiments, for our organization? And this is complex system theory. Or Management 3.0, I heard that Jürgen Appelow approached here last year. There are many good ideas in the Management 3.0 cycle. Or, Scott already talked about it, beyond budgeting, coming out of the financial industry, a totally different threat from agility. But beyond budgeting is something that could break this annual budgeting with rolling forecasts. So you could have ideas, how could I have a funding, a budgeting in an agile way, breaking this triangle of fixed scope, time, and budget. So there are many, many ideas out there. So I would please you read those books, take these resources, copy and paste and adapt in your organization. And don't claim that you have the best practice, the best solution. So I already talked about experiment. Experiment is not try and error. Experiment is to get better in something that I already be good in. No? So experimenting is not anything that is bad. So like Jürgen Appelow said, dance with the system. He's always saying, apply these techniques and methodologies out of your bag, your collection, your rich collection of methodologies, even the old ones, and try what will change your organization in a better way. So you have dance with the system, and sometimes you have to go through loops to go in the right direction. And then share your experience with others. So in this context, this methodology showed this, but that would be the right way to do it. Not saying, I found the new methodology and that's the best practice, and if you use this, you will be successful. That will never be the case. Otherwise, you should say, well, with this methodology, if I do it in this way, dancing in that way, then I really will have a success in my organization, but it could be different in your organization. But that's an option to try, an experiment that I would share with you. So, to be a little bit more concrete, there are kingdoms out there by now scaling how to scale agility. And I want to show you how I cross through these kingdoms. Because I see that a lot of this discussion, and we as an agile community are fighting in these small kingdoms against each other instead of the command and control foe that is coming with a cold from the north. Yeah? So I show you how I cross through these kingdoms and collect and fill my bag so that I have everything for every, hopefully for every situation, anything that I could pull out of this bag and apply and adapt so that my customer will be happy, or that this department of the customer will be happy, and work with that department of my customer so the whole will be getting better and improved. So I show you this on 4 examples. I just picked arbitrarily these 4 examples out here. Scott, one of these examples is yours. And I would show you... It's not your fault, yes? And I just want to show you how I go through these kingdoms, these rich kingdoms, these prosperous kingdoms with a lot of wisdom in there, and I fill my bag. So let's first cross the agility path kingdom by scrum.org. That's an idea how to scale agility. So actually, what are the core values of this? And what I collected here and what I think it's absolutely famous, that Ken says, start where you are. You are here and you want to improve. You don't have to create any prerequisites that you can start with getting agile. Well, you are here with this type of organization, with all the impediments, you could do it today. If you go to the management, you could say, I could be better tomorrow. Well, we could discuss still 3 months about a contract and whatever, but if you're getting better tomorrow, would that help you? So I like this idea. I like this idea that he's talking a lot about leadership and change management. Actually, he has this book from Kotter, the 8-step change management program, Leading Change, built into this agility path. And he said, address change. The transformation into an agile organization is a change project. And we know how to deal with change. There are resources out there. Take them, read them, and you know how to drive a change management project. That it has to do with agility is a different point, but it's a change project. So I love this idea. So I put it in my bag. And then he says, well, management will ask you for sure, how could you prove that you improved? And this is a nice point. He is addressing it by a regularly assessment, doing an agility index. So he's assessing, this is an example of such an assessment, what is your position today by carrying out a questionnaire and an interview with people out there. And he says, this is where we are, this is the state of our organization, and in 3 months we will do the same thing, the same questionnaire again, and we will see if we improved, and if we improved in these subjects that are of interest for us. If TDD is of interest for us, we want to see that we improved in TDD. If cultural change if it interests us. We want to see if we really reach cultural change. So I think this idea of a regular assessment that we could show in management that we improve is a good idea. I open my bag, put it in my bag, I'm happy. So I could say, well, as agility path, there are some ideas in there that are really prosperous. I take them with me. I have something in my box. So I cross the border to the next kingdom, the small kingdom called Large Enterprise Scaled Scrum. A nice thing is there is a good book behind from Craig Larman and Bas Vode, one of those in my stable beside the bed. It's worn out as well. And so what I'm taking here, here's core elements as well as anybody else, so the lean house, building up about a pyramid of values, principles, and good practices. What I collected as a very special thing at Craig Larman and the less idea is he's talking about feature teams and requirements eras. He says, I want to deliver value for anything in a domain, and what is very important is this domain knowledge. So there are people sitting on this knowledge and they're sharing this knowledge, not knowledge about agility and processes, knowledge about the domain. So in the telecom domain, it will be different. In the health domain, it will be different. In the transport domain, financial industry, so on. And there are requirements area that are close and tied together. So our first structure element in an organization, for example, should be these knowledge areas, these requirements areas. And not any discipline topic like testing or architecture. We need these competences and disciplines like architecture, testing, developing, operations, support, and so on. But this is not the primary structuring criteria in our organization. So I established communities of practice as a second approach so I could foster competences, skills, and capabilities in my company. So he's doing this thing that he says, this is my first and most important structuring idea for organizations. I identify such requirements areas like this, and within a such requirements area, I could substructure by features. So he says, my first structuring idea is on knowledge, domain knowledge in this company, domain knowledge about a subtopic in my company. Yeah? And I arrange people around these knowledge areas. And all this competence and skill thing I do in a virtual organization that he calls teams of competence, communities of practice. And this is pretty like the idea from Jürgen Appelow when he talks about guilds. So this guild community of practice idea is going in the same direction. So I open my bag and put these two ideas again in my bag. So wonderful things that are collected while passing these kingdoms. Or I go through the SAFE, one of the most heavyweight, largest, well-known scaling agility things, one of the most discussed as well. So there are a lot of people bashing now, those dogmatic agilistas are bashing on SAFE because they're saying it's not safe. Well, I have a different perspective. I go through the SAFE kingdom and say, what could I collect here? So Dean is talking about this differentiation that I have in any company, this level of a team, this level where I do program management, and this level where I do portfolio management, talking about budget and so on. And there are many good practices in this framework to address certain aspects in these three levels. So that was his experience out of many, many projects. So I think these are good ideas, and I discover many, many situations that I discovered in my own life. So it fits. So I took this idea of portfolio management, program management, and team management as well to address certain aspects that could be addressed only on this level. And there's a collection of ideas in the SAFE framework that could help me in addressing these aspects on these levels. So thinking about these levels is a good thing. So I put them in my bag. And For sure, this is a picture that convinces a lot of management people, and that's the reason why Dean has such a success, because this picture addresses management because they got the feeling everything is under control. There is a big structure. But I just take these good ideas and leave it open to others to discuss if this is just another structure that I put over an organization, or I take out ideas of this collection of good practices and try them and take these good ideas today and the next good ideas in 1 year and the next good ideas in 2 years. No? I don't take this as putting it over the client. And this is a superfluous discussion. If you follow agile principles and say we continuously improve and adapt, then we never put such a thing as it is and start with it tomorrow with all of this at the client. We never would do it. So I put these ideas from Dean in my pocket, go over and say, that's perfect. So I come across the last kingdom, and I saw in this kingdom additional things that I didn't find in any of the other 3 kingdoms, and I'm happy about this. So this discipline, agile delivery, we've seen this picture before today. There are other things. It bases well of many ideas about lean and agile, but I found this is the only one that's really architecture-based. So enterprise architecture is a first-class citizen. And all the other frameworks are not talking about enterprise architecture because there is a mapping between enterprise architecture and organizations and structures. 5 minutes ago, and we have to cope with this. And it's the only thing where I found this addressing DevOps challenge. Dean was talking about this just before. If we don't take operations and support into the agile boat, we will lose it. So there are new ideas. I open my bag, put them in my bag, and I will be happy when I come across the customer to apply these techniques that are in there. So what I want to say when I go over these agile kingdoms that are fighting against each other on the internet, I'm not fighting, I'm collecting, I'm a farmer, I'm a hunter, I copy and paste and adopt. And I share my experience with all the others without bashing and claiming there's the one solution or anything is better than anything other. I just say this works and it worked for me and I could share the experience. You could deal with it as you like. I'll go over this. So walking through the realm. The realm is the era of the 7 kingdoms. I have to say there are so many things out there. If we as an agile community really want to succeed, we don't have to carry out these fights, these small fights. So what I took with me by walking the realm is already positive things. There are so many positive things out there. I just collect them here on this slide, and I'm thinking about what is the context that I could apply these positive things. Because then we succeed with our clients, with our customers, and we succeed essentially against this common foe, these command and control others with the blue staring eyes. So optimize the whole. Optimizing the whole is I pick out of anything to find a good way to go with my client. I even take combinations of these approaches. Why don't taking DevOps out of DAD, some things out of SAFe with a continuous improvement and change management perspective from the agility path? I go to apply all this at the same time at my customer. So that's really success. That's acting professional, I would say. And not writing anything on the internet that something is better than X. So if you really want to act as an agile membership of an agile community, I would please you, be a warden of this agility realm, be a warden of agility, and don't play the Game of Thrones. Thanks you. So any questions or answers? So I'll be around as well for the day, and see you.